Monolith Monsters is kind of a unique movie. It's about rocks that fall from space. That's it. There's no aliens hell-bent on Earth's destruction or an evil mad scientist wanting to take over the planet. It's just rocks. Oh, rocks that happen to grow at an uncontrollable rate when exposed to water. So if it rains, it could be the end of humanity. No big deal. The opening narration sets the tone, talking about how only a small number of meteors actually hit the Earth. Most are burned up in space, but every once in a while, one makes it through, lying dormant, waiting, keeping its secrets. After the explosion, we meet Ben, a geologist from the sleepy desert town of San Angelo. His car overheats while climbing up a hill, and he gets out to cool it off. Little does he know, he just started something that can't be stopped. A chemical reaction with a strange rock which is littering the landscape. He takes a sample back to the lab to study, where he gets a visit from Mr. Cochran, who writes for the local paper. And in this small town, there isn't much news. They talk about the strange rock, Cochran excited of the idea that he might actually have a new discovery, and that would give him something to write about. At night, the winds pick up a bit, and it blows over a bottle of distilled water onto the rock. And instantly, it starts to smoke and bubble, growing. Ben sees this, but at this point, there's nothing he can do. In the morning, the real star of the movie shows up, Dave Miller. He's another geologist who works with Ben. When he shows up for work, he heads right into the lab and sees a ton of rocks, with the place trashed. Worse yet is what happened to Ben. He's solid stone, like he sneaked a peek at Medusa. Meanwhile, we meet Dave's girlfriend, Kathy. She seems to be a school teacher taking her kids out into the desert for a field trip, taking a particular interest in one girl, Jenny. They talk a bit about Dave and Kathy's relationship and blah blah blah. It's not important. What is important is what Jenny brings home as a souvenir, a shiny black stone. Her mother won't let her bring it inside because it's a dirty old rock. So Jenny does the sensible thing and washes it off, sealing her family's fate. Back in town, Dr. Reynolds performs an autopsy on Ben, and he's stumped. How could a man turn to solid stone overnight? The only thing they can think of is the mysterious rock that's now littering the lab, that same rock that Jenny took home to her family. They rush over to her house, only to find it destroyed, taken over. Everyone searches for the family, and Mom and Dad are found, killed the same way Ben was. However, there still seems to be some hope for Jenny. She's alive, but in total shock. They take a closer look at the rock and notice a negative cleavage, which is just the worst type of cleavage.
Negative cleavage?
They talk science for a while, trying to figure it all out. The rock doesn't seem to be anything special, it's just ordinary silicon. It does look cool, so what if a tourist took a few pieces home? This stuff could spread across the country like wildfire. Just then, Dr. Reynolds calls over with some bad news. Jenny's getting worse, and she needs to be rushed to a hospital in LA immediately. Like her parents, she's starting to turn to stone, and it's spreading fast. They manage to get her to Dr. Hendricks before too long, and he starts work immediately. But without knowing exactly what caused this, there's little he can do. While in town, Dave decides to meet up with an old geologist professor he had, Flanders, who wants to take a closer look.
When can you leave? I'm all packed.
They rush back to San Angelo, leaving Kathy with Jenny. Flanders and Dave go to Jenny's house,
See any
and
difference?
that's when the professor notices something. The ground around the rocks
Now look
all
here.
looks different than usual. It seems
than just the
almost
color.
lifeless. They eventually figure out that it's lacking all silicon, like the stone was sucked dry. Human beings just so happen to have some silicon in them, which gives Dave an idea. If Dr. Hendricks could give Jenny an injection of silicon, then it might save her life. While the doctor works on that, Dave and Flanders go to the original meteor site for some more clues. They get out and just pick the rocks up, like they didn't just see 3 people turn to solid rock after messing with these things. Wear some gloves, people! Well, they have bigger things to worry about, because deep inside the crater lies a giant monolith that's only gonna get bigger. Back in the lab, they finally figure out that water makes these things grow. It took them long enough. Good thing they're out in the desert, where it almost never rains. Oh, wait. Oh, I guess they're screwed now. We're doomed. Nothing we can do but kiss our butts goodbye. The sheriff orders an evacuation, but by this point, the giant monoliths have fallen over and taken out the city's power and phone lines, so it's hard to get the word out. They do get some good news, however. A meteorologist reports that the rain will stop in the morning, and there's no more in the forecast. Even better, Jenny's healed. Dr. Hendricks' silicon concoction worked.
She's gonna be all right.
With the phone lines down, the only way to communicate is through police radio. And that's how Dr. Hendricks is able to give him the chemical compound used to save Jenny, which is really just a bunch of different chemicals with some silicone and a saline solution to hold it together. In the lab, they experiment with these chemicals to try to figure out a way to stop the growth, but nothing's working. Outside, they do manage to evacuate the town. And that's when Cochran comes into play. He finally has something newsworthy as he prints an emergency paper. He has some local boys deliver it, getting the word out, and soon enough, the town's empty. So that's good. There's also some hope in the lab. They finally figured out how to stop the growth. It was the saline, simple salt water. So you're telling me if this thing landed in the ocean, we wouldn't have had this problem at all? What are the chances that it hit land? Well, now armed with the knowledge of how to beat these things, they can come up with a plan. And they're kind of in luck. The monoliths are following a mountain trail. As they grow, they tumble over and multiply all across the valley floor. This would lead them straight to town, but luckily, there's a dam holding back a ton of water right in front of a salt mine. They could open up the gates and let the valley flood, saving the world. The only problem is, the gates won't let water through fast enough. They're going to have to blow up the dam.
Blow it up?
Which was a $6 million project. Not something you can just destroy and get away with. So they call the governor for his support. But he wants to come and assess the situation. So they're going to have to wait. And wait. And wait. Until finally, it's too late. It's now or never. So David makes the call and blows up the dam. The water starts to flow, hitting the salt mine, mixing together to make the salty brine. Once it hits the towering rocks, it works, stopping their growth and saving the town and all of humanity.
It's working! It's working!
But what about the governor? Will he throw Dave in jail for destroying the dam?
Oh, he said, don't blow up the dam. Unless you're absolutely certain it'll be successful.
It's up to you if Monolith Monsters is a creature feature or not. Rock isn't really alive, right? Well, there are these things called trovents, which are stones that can grow, move, and even reproduce. And guess how they do it? With rainwater. That's pretty cool, and so is Monolith Monsters. It's an original idea that hasn't really been done since, to my knowledge. The rock didn't do anything wrong, it wasn't evil, it's just a rock that happens to grow when wet. The locals all treat it like a natural disaster, which it is. If this was made today, I guarantee you there would be a post-credit scene showing a hand picking up a fragment of rock that was missed, and an evil laugh or something just to leave it wide open. That's why I like Monolith Monsters. It's simple, sure. It takes our heroes a long time to figure out how it works and how to stop it, when the audience is basically shown in the first 5 minutes how it all works. It's easy to assume the characters are dumb, but they just don't know. I kinda like putting the pieces together with the characters at the same time. So if there was anything I would change, it would be to hide that fact from the audience for just a little while longer. But really, I can't complain. The music's good, the acting's good, it feels like a classic Universal Pictures movie right out in 1957. I give Monolith Monsters 3 giant monoliths out of 4.
There's a negative cleavage on every mineral in there.
Negative cleavage?
Yeah, see for yourself.
I think I better stick to the newspaper business.